The date is Friday, August 12th, and you're listening to Entertain This, a thought-provoking podcast encapsulating all things entertainment. Ever since the invention of TV, there has always been situational comedies, or sitcoms. These shows delight us with a cast of relatable characters going through familiar situations in often comedic ways. But what happens when you turn that formula on its head? Well, then you have It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and our topic for today. So enjoy! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. It's Entertain This.
Entertain this.
Hold on. What was that little bit of jazz you added there?
It's like an air horn, bro.
Oh, shit. All right, well, it wasn't properly implemented, so let's try it again.
Oh, shit, I'm sorry.
No, you added a thing, so now we got to do it. We got to commit to the bit.
Okay.
Anyway, play the music again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. It's Entertain This.
Entertain this.
What?
Came in early. Play the music again.
Damn it, I'm sorry.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite show on the internet, encapsulating all things entertainment. It's Entertain This.
Entertain this.
What?
Nice.
Yeah.
We pulled it off. As always,
About
I'm one of your
blood vessel trying to do that.
I'm one of your enthusiastic hosts. I'm Alex.
I'm Michael. And I am Pat. And I'm back this time, so I guess I didn't mess up.
You didn't mess up last time. Also, I haven't edited that episode yet, so if you had messed up, I wouldn't know yet. I'll have to figure that out later. But we're back for another gripping episode of your favorite show, encapsulating all things entertainment. I don't know if gripping is an okay verbiage or adjective to describe us. I've never really enjoyed the adjective gripping because it's aggressive and it's like proper use. And even if you're using it improperly, it's just gross.
Yeah, not a big fan. I feel like there's also a little bit of like implied in like non-consent there. It's like it's like I can't help it.
It sucks. Everything about that sucks. It's bad. So Pat, it's your second week.
Yes, it
And
is my second week.
We're having all these guest hosts on, right? We had Chloe, now we have you. And what the unfortunate thing is that you guys joined in a year where the guest goes last. So you have to sit through 2 episodes of like the veterans on this podcast going before you get to like have your moment in the sun. So I apologize for that specifically.
Nah, you're good.
But
I'll just have to knock the socks off when it's my turn.
that's right. But that being said, Michael, you went last week. You had a lovely episode. So I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to be charitable, and I'll go this week if that's okay.
We'll have to clear it with the board, but yeah, it should be fine.
Well, let's clear it with the board because the gang's going to record a podcast.
Ooh.
Insert Always Sunny in Philadelphia music here.
Great segue. Incredible.
So in all of television, we've seen many a show come and go, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got, your Hannah Montanas, for example. You've got your Friends. Friends had a pretty long run. You have your How I Met Your Mothers that end in a sort of disappointing way. And one of the trends, especially in all of these that I've named, is this idea of a sitcom, right? Situational comedy. And that's kind of been troped through television since pretty much its beginning. You had your Leave It to Beavers and things like that focus around this dichotomy of a group of individuals who are put in these situations that are relatively close to the lives of the viewers, but are off and for that reason provide comedic relief, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It is in my personal opinion that these types of shows, though entertaining for the most part, are pretty cookie cutter. Um, Pretty much they're all the same. You know, you got your love interests, you've got your will they, won't theys, which I guess is also love interests, so that's a repetition. But you've got, you know, the funny guy and the cool one, the Uncle Jesse character, and you know, you got the dramas that come along with it, and you watch these characters become a family, you fall in love with them, and so on and so forth. And that's great. And some people love that. And it's why you see success in shows like Full House or Modern Family to an extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk today about a show that takes that concept and made it a parody that has, at this point, outlived most of the shows that were being parodied to begin with. Because I want to talk about, if it wasn't obvious already, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So let's start off with let's break some ice. Let's start with an icebreaker question. Have you guys seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia / are you familiar with it?
Familiar with it, but have I watched it in great detail? No.
Okay.
I have. I don't think I've sat there and watched a few episodes. Like what I've seen mostly though are like the highlights.
Highlights, like the internet, like the internet compilations of different things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible. Well, it's should be noted that they are currently on their 15th season, beating the record of many of the shows to which I had mentioned in the intro. But I think that talking about this show in general, you'll get a pretty good grasp on what it is. But I want to talk about what makes this show really special, which is some of the stuff that happened that led it to be the icon that it is now, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to get into the history. But first, let me ask you this. If you've seen it, which you both say you have, at least in passing, what is either your favorite episode or the episode that you remember the most about?
Oh, I know mine right away. Mine is the one where Charlie puts on the Nightman play. For me, it's just the entire poor execution of the play, and everyone just the thing that I love about that one is every character has a time to shine in being so bad at what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And that really is like the best part about It's Always Sunny.
Yeah. It is an interesting dichotomy against the sort of things that I set up in the intro, because in most sitcoms, what they're trying to do is make everyone likable so that they're casting a wide net. What can we have the audience attached to and identify with, right?
Yeah.
Always Sunny makes you watch it because, like you're saying, they want you to not identify with any of them.
Yeah. I mean, like, It's Always Sunny can, I think, be like boiled down as like a summary of it is really just, it is an incredible sitcom that is the anti-sitcom.
Absolutely. And we'll get kind of more into that, and especially how they portray it in the show. But Pat, do you remember the episodes that you've seen? At least one of them?
So it's always been bits and pieces in passing. I'm going to be real honest. So
okay, so what do you remember when you think Always Sunny? What comes to mind?
So Danny DeVito,
obviously,
just off the rip, but more just I'm trying to remember what character is, but he's like the goes after all the women kind of thing, and always like he's super
Dennis.
tries to be And there's episodes of him being in the bar and like him trying to pick up multiple women. There's like things like that. And then other things that I've seen is just the outright, not absurd stuff that they do, but like disgusting and like nasty things. Like Danny DeVito like put himself on a couch.
Oh,
It
that's
was
not
like
the
in a
worst thing that
couch.
happens on that show.
And,
No.
like it was inside of a couch for what, like I don't know, was like days.
Yeah,
So
he's
it just
hiding inside of a couch because he is trying to spy on his employees at his business to figure out which one of them say bad things about him so he can fire them. And then
So-
halfway through the party, he gets too hot because he's in a leather couch and he cuts his way out and he's
yep.
covered in sweat and he's just a naked, sweaty Danny DeVito crawling out of a leather couch. And that's
Yep.
pretty much like a pretty good symbolage of what this show is.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty memorable. I'll
Yeah.
just tell you that.
Well, let's get into the meat and potatoes because I want to talk about the origins. So this started with our three main characters. We got Charlie Day, who we're all familiar with from hit movies like what was the one where he got into a fight with Ice Cube?
What?
I don't know. That happened.
Is it Horrible Bosses?
No, he was in Horrible Bosses too, but there was
Yeah.
one where he like gets into a physical altercation with another teacher at a school that he's teaching at. He was also in Pacific Rim, sure.
Yes.
Glenn Howerton,
Fist fight.
Fist Fight.
That's the
Fight.
movie.
Yeah.
Glenn Howerton is Dennis, by the way.
Yep.
That's Dennis Reynolds. And he was in another he was also in another TV show where he played a teacher. It was like a
Yeah.
Bad Teacher spinoff, but it was with a man and it was AP Bio. We got our fact checker and she's hot on the ball right now.
I really enjoyed that show. It was really good.
Yeah, did they continue or is it over?
It might be over. Yeah, it looks like it's over. It had its last season in 2021.
Nice. I need to finish that because I remember watching the first season and not much more of it. But the third player who brought this to life was Rob McElhenney. Did I pronounce that terribly?
I don't know.
We'll call him
I was
Rob.
gonna say,
We're all
doesn't-
from like the general
is-
same area of the US.
The worst-
Like, come on.
The worst part is that I know these people by Charlie, Dennis, and Mac, and that's
Yep.
how I'm going to refer to them for the rest of the episode.
Love it.
But Rob is Mac. So they first met, right? They came together because they were all auditioning for Tuck Everlasting, the musical.
Mm.
Yeah, and other projects in New York City. And later, they met up again when they were all auditioning in Los Angeles for TV series. He's basically doing the actor's grind, you know, the one. So they were going for similar parts because they're all, you know, about equal in age and they're all white men. So they were all going after the same parts. They moved to Los Angeles around the same time and even had the same talent manager, Nick Frenkel. I wish I could pronounce names. Anyway, so Day and Howerton notably got to know each other on a car ride back from a testing for that 80s show in late 2001, which obviously didn't make it to fruition, but now we're doing that 90s show, so who cares? When Howerton... What'd you say?
So nobody cares about the 80s. What's notable about that other than hair metal?
The 80s were not that big. You're right. There wasn't much other than hair metal. So when Howerton was cast as Corey Howard, and Day did not get a part in it, basically. So they're riding back, and Charlie Day's like, "Hey man, congrats. I didn't get a part though, you know." So while living in New York, Charlie Day had been making comedic home movies with Jimmy Simpson, who is one of the sort of redneck family members on Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Nate Mooney, who also carried over to that same family in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. David Hornsby, who plays cricket in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. For those of you Always Sunny fans out there, and Logan Marshall Green, whom I cannot identify, but I'm sure that he played a character. I think that he actually, now looking at him, might have been the army guy who Dee thought was stuck to a wheelchair, but then he was able to stand up, and Dee was like, "You can walk," and it was a whole thing. They're terrible people. We can get into that later. But those were Charlie Day's friends from Williamstown Theater Festival, many of whom would later go on to be involved in Always Sunny, which inspired McIlhenny and Howerton to make a short film of their own with Charlie Day. They were like, we need to make a short film with him, right? So you're kind of seeing where this is going. These three actors who are all desperate for work see these short films um being made by this like weird dude who they've been hanging out with, and decide, hey, we want to do that too because we don't have any work right now.
Create your own destiny.
Exactly. So the guy who plays Mac in particular had been writing screenplays between jobs, and since none of them were picked up, he decided to shoot them himself with Howerton, the guy who plays Dennis. Mm-hmm. And the guy who plays Charlie and the other actor friends all agreed to be in these. So the main writer was Mac, right? And then the like quote unquote casting director was Charlie, because he brought all of these like weird New York theater people in. And then Howerton was just like also there to be like the leading man, which in terms of their characters in Always Sunny fits so well. The decision to make their own short films was further influenced by the release of the affordable Panasonic DVX-100A digital camera, as well as the accessible, low-budget look of a lot of really popular sitcoms at the time, which was specifically The Office UK, the original Office, and Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Great places to draw inspiration from.
I mean, take that into consideration, because Curb Your Enthusiasm is like this sarcastic, like snarky comedy comes from misfortune of others, right?
Oh yeah.
And then The Office UK is based almost solely in British humor, which is always like punching down at the main character.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like they find it funny when the protagonist fails, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about how all of this relates back to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, other than the key cast members already being there. And we've kind of set up the plot for this idea that they had this group of friends who are making these short movies. So It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia grew out of the idea for a short film conceived late one night by the guy who plays Mac, where a friend comes over to another friend's house to get sugar, and the friend tells him that he has cancer. And all that the other guy can think about is how he can get his sugar and get out of there.
Which, didn't they use that scenario as the basis for all of their casting? I've seen casting videos of everyone doing these different scenes, especially I can't remember her name right now, but she plays Sweet D. Mm-hmm. I've seen her casting video, and is that exact scenario.
It's Caitlin Olsen, by the way.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
By the way, so
go ahead.
So by the way, and I think you might be getting to this, but the original pilot was made for $200.
Well, we'll get to something similar to that. But that's what a lot of people think, is that the original was made for $200.
Really?
Yeah, but we'll get into it.
Okay.
So, for this short film about this guy who goes over to his friend's house for sugar and finds out that his friend has cancer and then just wants to leave because of the awkwardness of the situation, he wrote the scene down before taking it to the guy who plays Dennis the next day to flesh it out and work on making it actually funny, because you got to be very careful with especially that theme. Charlie was soon roped in, and the first script was written, featuring 3 struggling actors in LA named Charlie, Glenn, and Mac. Right? We're almost there. And the ensuing awkwardness around Charlie's cancer diagnosis. So they're actors in LA, and Charlie has cancer. And that's what the premise of this kind of rolled into. The home movies were shot and reshot multiple times, initially with Hornsby playing the Mac character and the guy who would ultimately go on to play Mac just staying behind the camera and directing. So at the time, Mac was played by Dennis, which is even funnier. It was via this process that the guy who plays Mac, the guy who plays Charlie, and the guy who plays Dennis learned the basics of shooting, editing, and other aspects of filmmaking. The three then developed a second quote-unquote episode of their home movie series, this time focused on the cringe humor from Mac's sense of shame around his relationship with Carmen, a transgender woman, which would later find its way onto the actual Always Sunny in Philadelphia TV show. At this point, it became clear that the home movies had potential as a television series instead of short films that were envisioned as originally. Both parts would eventually end up in the episode Charlie Has Cancer, which literally takes both of those concepts and throws them together.
Nice.
So at the time, the home movie was titled It's Always Sunny on TV, after an Aha song, The Sun Always Shines on TV, that Howerton was listening to while stretching at a Crunch Gym in West Hollywood. They decided to try to name it that. It was later changed to reflect that in the unaired pilot. The gang has been rewritten as bar owners in Philadelphia instead of actors in LA, right? So eventually we got there. And we'll kind of talk about why a bit later on. But this was then developed into a pilot called It's Always Sunny on TV and was shot on a digital camcorder and filmed in the actors' own apartments. They expanded the central cast of 4 people living in Los Angeles to a group of best friends who care very little about each other, which is kind of the premise of Always Sunny.
Yep.
It was believed that the pilot was shot with a budget of $200, Patrick, but Charlie Day would later comment, they literally did not have $200. They had nothing. It was shot for nothing. They don't know where the $200 came from. They were just a bunch of kids with cameras running around shooting each other. And the next thing they knew, they were 11 years in and still doing the show. They had no budget for the first episode.
Incredible.
They were kind of do-it-yourselfers when it came to the TV series because the pilot was even shopped by the actors around various studios. Their pitch being simply showing the DVD of the pilot to executives, and then after viewing the pilot, eventually they struck up a deal with FX Network ordering the first season of the show. So it's always been on FX too. It's not one of those that have been like migrating from Adult Swim to Fox to eventually be picked up by FX. It's been FX the whole time. The show was budgeted at a little bit less than $500,000 an episode. So a little bit better considering they spent nothing on the first one. Less than a third of the network standard, by the way. So most were getting way more per episode. This was considered low. And I guess for these guys, they were like, that's awesome. They were still using the Panasonic digital camera to film the first season of the show. Crazy. And that's why when you watch the first season, it looks so crunchy, quote unquote. The original concept of the gang being out of work actors with the theme song being a cha-cha version of Hooray for Hollywood. However, there were too many shows at the time with this similar premise. The network basically came to them and said, we don't want a show about actors. And they said, fine, we'll put it somewhere else. So it was actually the guy who plays Mac who said, I'm from Philly, let's put it in Philly, and we'll make it about a bar because that's a job where you can have a lot of free time and still have income that could explain how these people can sustain themselves, which is if you want to give me money to make this show, right? And it's my dream to make this show.
Yeah.
I'm going to make whatever changes you ask me to. And it's even better if that means that I can just work even closer to what I already know, which is what it's like to live in Philadelphia. Prior to Caitlin Olsen joining the show, the character Sweet D was originally played by Jordan Reed, who was the girlfriend at the time of the guy who plays Mac. But after they broke up, he recasted her. And then he went on to marry Caitlin Olsen.
Hell
Wow.
yeah.
So, guess it really is always sunny in Philadelphia. Am I right, ladies?
Huh?
After the... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just like, never mind. I was just like, the ladies are like, oh, what are you talking about?
It's the jokes we don't tell that are the funniest. So after the first season, FX executives were worried about the show's low ratings and demanded that a change be made to the cast. So John Landgraf, who was at the time the president of FX, called them in for a meeting, and he said, "Hey, no one's watching the show, but we at FX love it." He said, "We want to keep it on, but we don't have any money for marketing, and we need to add somebody with some panache that we can hopefully parlay into some public relations story so that we can get people talking." It was at that time that FX began suggesting actors such as Danny DeVito,
Hey.
Nice.
because Danny DeVito at the time was a huge name in Hollywood because of his work on Taxi. Which was a sitcom in the 80s and maybe the 90s, but I'm not really too sure about that.
So what is our timetable for what year are we in right now?
So season 1 happened in 2001.
Okay, gotcha.
So right now we're maybe at 2004. I don't know.
Okay.
For sure. I'm telling you the story. I don't know the dates. So they said, "Hey, we should put Danny DeVito on the show. He's a huge name. It'll boost the show's profile." And Howardson has gone on record to say it's not that we were reticent on the idea of Danny being added to the show. It's that we were reticent to add a name to the show, because we kind of liked that we were no names and that it was this weird small thing, Initially,
Sure.
the guy who played Mac straight up refused, being the director of most episodes, saying, "No, I just don't think we want to do that." And then when the executives were like, "Oh, okay, the show's over," they realized, "Okay, yeah, let's just add DeVito." So basically, they were like, "We're not going to do that." The executives said, "Well, if you don't, then we're going to cancel you." And they went, "Can we get Danny DeVito tomorrow?"
Ended up being probably one of the best decisions they ever made.
Yes. So Danny DeVito joined the cast in the first episode of the second season, playing the father of Dee and Dennis. And the rest is kind of history for the show. Not too much happened developmental wise, but once Danny DeVito was added, all of our cast of characters have been laid on stage for us to see. So just from that alone, I think it's kind of inspirational how these three actors basically built this from the ground up and did whatever it took to make it work and ended up creating something really awesome.
They created their own destiny, which is crazy. They literally, with no budget whatsoever, have outlasted Friends. And I mean, everybody knows who Jennifer Aniston and all them are. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of characters, let's take a moment to sort of do a quick character run through.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, we'll get into some of my favorite episodes, and I'll tell you the reasons why. But first, let me just refamiliarize you with some of the characters in the actual show. So now we're just talking about the show. We've talked about the beginnings. Let's talk about the show. So first off, we have Charlie Day as Charlie Kelly, kept the name Charlie. He's the co-owner and janitor of Patty's Pub. He is childhood friends of Mac and a high school friend of Dennis and Dee. He lives in squalor with Frank in a rundown, vermin-infested apartment and has many deep-seated psychological problems, partially due to substance abuse from huffing paint and glue, and partly due to his complicated family background, possibly involving child abuse. He regularly eats various items not meant for human consumption, such as cat food, stickers, and bleach. He is arguably the simplest member of the gang, despite his general lack of intelligence and his illiteracy. Charlie is a naturally gifted musician, a self-proclaimed expert in quote-unquote bird law, and possibly the only competent worker at Patty's Pub, with his knack for unorthodox maintenance practices, quote unquote, Charlie work. He also has an unhealthy obsession with the waitress, quote unquote, a reoccurring character who finds his interest in her creepy.
Oof.
Problematic. That's the first thing that you need to know about this show is it's problematic. But it's self-aware problematic.
Fully embraced.
Yes. All right, next we have Glenn Howerton as Dennis Reynolds, the co-owner and the main bartender of Patty's Pub, in addition to being Dee's twin brother and Frank's son. Originally the most intelligent and normal-seeming of the three co-owners, Dennis is slowly revealed to be the most narcissistic and psychopathic of the gang. Dennis is extremely superficial, selfish, vain, and abrasive. His predatory nature is often depicted through numerous attempts to seduce various women, which, when successful, result in him gaslighting and emotionally abusing them in order to win over their favor before inevitably dumping them once he has had sex with them. This is known as the Dennis system in the show. He lays it out very plainly, almost those exact steps. It is strongly hinted that at times that Dennis may be a serial killer, though this kind of remains ambiguous. In season 10, he is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, though he frequently denies this and believes himself to be completely rational and is convinced that he is in complete control of everything and everyone around him, going as far as to label himself a golden god, quote unquote. In the season 12 finale, Dennis reveals to the rest of the gang that he has an infant son and moves to North Dakota to raise him. He returns to Philadelphia in season 13, supposedly supporting his family from a distance.
Creepy.
This is a comedy.
Yeah.
By the way.
Very controlling. Wow. That's crazy character, man.
This is a comedy. All of everything I just told you, all of those facts were a punchline at some point. That's wild. And that's going to continue as we keep reading through. So we have Rob McElhenley. I'm trashing his last name. Anyway, he's Mac. He is co-owner and self-proclaimed bouncer of Patty's Pub. He is Charlie's childhood friend and Dennis's high school friend and later roommate. He's the son of a convicted felon who has been in prison for much of Mac's life. He frequently attempts to demonstrate his toughness and refers to himself as the Sheriff of Patty's. Deeply insecure, Mac seeks the approval of those around him, especially his father, his apathetic and emotionally absent mother, and Dennis. He suffers from body dysmorphia and has been depicted at various weights throughout the course of the series. Prior to the beginning of season 7, he gained 60 pounds and was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And when he finally returned to a healthy weight, he admitted he missed supposedly coming across as scary to people. By season 13, he is noticeably ripped and physically stronger. He often brags about his hand-to-hand combat, but typically flees from physical confrontation and is usually depicted as the most cowardly of the gang. Mac is Roman Catholic, though he often espouses strong Christian fundamentalist opinions. Despite his often amoral behavior, such as casual sex with numerous women, including Dennis's and Dee's mother, though it is frequently insinuated Mac harbors homosexual feelings, he maintains an adamant denial of any such proclivity, much to the gang's annoyance, until he comes out in season 12. Later episodes reveal that Mac is sexually attracted to his best friend Dennis. Oof. I want to talk for a second about Mac because the whole body dysmorphia thing and him gaining 60 pounds is something that the actor actually went through. And the reason that he did that and the reason he gives is because he says in every sitcom he's ever watched, as the show continues on, the characters get hotter. He wanted his character to get less hot the further it went on. So he purposefully tried to like wear too small shirts, spill food on him, and like all of that.
Well, if I remember right, I think I remember seeing some trivia that like he wanted all of the characters to get fat just for a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And after like he was the only one who actually followed through with it. They showed up to like shoot the first day and they're just like, no, that's stupid.
Who's the one that ended up looking like a Greek god? Like there's somebody that's like absolute like
that's
ripped. I think
Mac.
That's Mac.
That's
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one who
Michael
who
Henny,
got
yeah.
fat for the show.
Yeah. And
That's
then he
crazy.
turned around and got ripped for the show because he thought that'd be funny as well.
Yeah, he just wanted it to go nuts.
Like Rob McElhenney is the definition of like he will die by the bit.
Yep.
Like
and God bless him for it.
So I was watching a TikTok and it came across McElhenney, right? And somebody asked him, how do you get his body like,
yeah.
and he was like, well, first off, you're going to need a trainer, and then you're going to have to give up all the food that you like. And then, you like alcohol, right? Everybody likes alcohol. And he's like, you don't get any alcohol anymore. He's like, and then it's like, you have a job. Well, you're going to want to quit that because you're not going to be able to do that job for
well, and like, meanwhile, as he's like describing, it's like, yeah, it's all just so easy. Just like, just what do you mean you
can't? It was
can't
a giant
do
joke.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I also saw that same TikTok, and he was like, well, first things first is you're going to want to get a TV show because they're going to have to pay for all of this because it's going to get expensive, which is pretty funny. So continuing on the character list, we have Caitlin Olsen as Deandra Sweet D. Reynolds. She is a waitress and sometimes bartender at Patty's Pub, as well as Dennis's twin sister and Frank's daughter. Though initially depicted as the gang's the voice of reason, quote unquote, in the pilot episode, she gradually loses any sense of moral fortitude that she once had and is frequently shown to be just as prejudiced and deprived as her male friends by the end of season 1. Dee wore a back brace in high school, leaving her with the nickname the Aluminum Monster, and she is frequently referred to by the gang as a bird. Dee lives alone in an apartment, though often the butt of the gang's joke, she frequently involves herself in their schemes, perhaps due to her constant need for approval and attention of her peers. She does not hold any ownership stake in the bar, perhaps due to the gang's various prejudice against her, but also in part to her desire to become a professional actress/comedian. In multiple episodes, it is referenced that Dee set her college roommate on fire and is portrayed as the most physically violent of the group. Despite expressing outward disgust at her brother's more predatory behavior, later episodes reveal Dee not to be above such behaviors herself.
Yeah, they're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Jesus, man, what is this show?
It's a comedy.
Yeah.
Don't you know that?
This isn't funny to you?
With a bunch of what's the word looking for? A bunch of narcissistic people.
They're pieces of shit because they purposely wrote the show to not make you want to be them. Yeah, they want you to watch them like you would watch animals fight in a zoo. Like, that's what they want. They want you to watch them because they are so terrible. But anyway, the last of the gang is Danny DeVito as Frank Reynolds, father of Dennis and Dee Reynolds, and the majority owner of Patty's Pub soon after his introduction in season 2 onward. Frank is a millionaire that often funds and enables the gang's worst schemes and impulses just to feel a sense of youthfulness and energy. He was once a successful businessman with a long history of illegal operations and dealings with sordid characters, but chooses to abandon that life and redeem himself after leaving his, quote, and this is a quote from the show, whore wife, Barbara Reynolds. He says it all the time. It is revealed by the end of season 2 that Dee and Dennis are products of an affair and not actually his biological children. He has since embraced his feral nature and described himself as fringe class, quote unquote. Despite his substantial financial resources, he chooses to share a decrepit studio apartment with Charlie, where they sleep together on a pull-out couch and have a surprisingly affectionate pseudo-father-son relationship. The two have similar interests, such as playing an explicitable game of night crawlers and foraging naked in sewers for valuables. He always arms himself with at least one loaded gun and often snorts cocaine as part of his daily routine.
Sounds like a man I want to get to know.
Yes. So that's the gang. We've laid out the characters. You've met them all. So let's talk about 2 of my favorite episodes. The first of my favorite episodes, and the one that I think about the most when I think of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, is from season 9, episode 3, and it's called "The Gang Tries Desperately to Win an Award."
Okay.
Are you guys familiar with this?
No.
The title doesn't sound familiar, but I'm sure I've seen parts of it.
Okay, let's visit first off a synopsis. Tired of failing to be recognized for their years of service in the bar industry, the gang changes their ways to give the patrons what they think they want.
That sounds like a great recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing quite like 4 narcissists who have no connection to reality trying to figure out what other people like.
Correct. So let's talk about a recap. So it's 2:30 p.m. on a Friday. Dennis, D, Mac, and Charlie are arguing over the latter lack of sanitation products when Frank walks in and announces the annual Bar Association Award, which the rest of the gang deems as stupid. Yet they express concern over the fact that their bar has never been nominated, believing that they deserve the same kind of recognition as other bars, and start to get upset about it. They decide to play the game while still claiming they don't care about it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some of the things they do. First, they visit the Restaurant Bar Association office, where Frank tries to seduce the rep into a nomination. However, he finds out that it only costs $10 to apply for the competition, and that's all they have to do, and then they're nominated. They say that they have sent this form to Patty's Pub in years prior, but all they received on the flyer that they sent out was, quote, fecal matter, urine, and racial slurs.
Wonderful.
Sounds about right.
To which the gang claims is just their sense of humor.
Oof.
Frank insists that this time they're going to take it for real, but he attempts to pay the fee, but gets splattered in the face by a paintball when he opens the case, a prank that the others were planning to pull on the rep as part of their humor, but didn't work out. Once the gang leaves the office, they discuss their sense of humor, and they realize that it doesn't appeal to the restaurant and bar industry. Charlie insists on writing a song for the bar to help them stand out from others, but the others don't agree to it. At that point, Charlie heads back to the bar to write a song regardless, while the rest go to check out the competition. They visit a bar called Suds, which won Best Bar Award, and are immediately put off by the colorful lights and loud atmosphere and pop music. They start to realize that some of the reasons why this bar is successful is because of the characters within the bar, such as 2 of the bartenders who seem to have a will they won't they relationship. Are you starting to get it?
Yeah. Putting the pieces together.
At this point, the gang slowly decides that they love the atmosphere of the friendly bar, and they plan on changing their bar to have a very similar idea. Yeah. So back at Patty's, the gang is trying to incorporate what they've seen at Suds into their bar, but Frank comes in with a new idea to make everything darker and edgier based on a burlesque bar / strip joint that he and Artemis went to the other night, which has also won awards.
Oh,
Dennis also mentions a bar that opened just down the street from them, which already won a ton of awards, meaning their location isn't the issue. Frank questions if quote unquote they are the issue, but the others immediately deny it.
No.
Charlie then announces that he just finished the song for the bar and plays it for the gang, which turns out surprisingly tasteful, and they all seem to enjoy it. However, Frank ends up locking himself in the basement to prevent him from playing at opening night.
Oh, God. Of course.
So, in sort of conclusion, the gang dresses Patty is in tropical colored lights and decorations similar to Suds, and play lighthearted, fun pop music to a full house, which the rep and execs attend. They also invite Z to serve as their quote-unquote black friend, though they are nervous that his quote-unquote gangster vibe will not gel well with the customers. When a customer asks for a drink, Mac fumbles in his comedic banter and makes it sound like they ejaculate in the drinks. Frank sets up a burlesque room in his office, and Dennis goes to help while having Mac and D do a will they, won't they moment, which turns ugly when Dee ends up insulting Mac's mother, causing the latter to choke her in anger. Suddenly, Charlie's high on spray paint, climbs out of the floor, and prepares playing his song, much to the others' dismay. Z then brings back his other friends with similar gangster vibes, so that the gang decides to show the execs their burlesque room, only to stumble into an awkward situation between Frank and Artemis, in which a bottle got stuck up Frank's rear end. Charlie announces his song to the bar, and the gang, having run out of ideas, believes it'll lighten the mood. But it ends up being in bad taste, ending with Charlie telling everyone to go fuck themselves. He begins spitting at the customers, and the rest quickly join spitting most of the customers, including the execs, out of the bar. After everyone leaves, the gang realizes the problem is them, but they don't need an award or any outside validation. They are just happy the way they are, though they are still disappointed at not winning an award.
I mean,
what was that fever dream of an episode?
What does it mean?
Is like that sort of descent into just calamity and madness is something that I feel like happens every episode.
This episode, to answer your question, Patrick, was written in response to the fact that in 9 seasons, Always Sunny in Philadelphia was never nominated for an Emmy. And the entire episode is used as a way of making fun of the Emmys and making fun of other TV shows by including things like a will they, won't they relationship, things like a theme song written to pep people up and make them happy when they're watching it. The idea of the color of someone's skin dictating whether or not they win the award. And at the end of it, they realize they don't care. They don't want to win. They just want to be themselves. And the people who are in charge of the Emmys can go fuck themselves.
Nice. That's hilarious.
That is the meaning of this whole episode.
I was going to say that, like, that sitcom, like them making fun of it, it's like pretty much by that point you're putting out every sitcom that there is. I was thinking of like How I Met Your Mother, the will they, won't they with Robin versus God, what's his name?
Ted.
And then the theme song being that from The Office, the peppy theme song in the beginning. That was my thought. So.
All of those are shows that won Emmys. This was Always Sunny being like, you guys don't want to give us an Emmy, and we actually don't give a fuck. Instead, we're going to make an episode about this.
How incredible would it have been for them to win an Emmy for that episode?
Well, they won a lot of Emmys after that episode, which is the funny thing.
Yeah.
Awards that they've won include... so they were nominated for 3 Emmys. They actually never won. Sorry, I guess I lied. But they were nominated in 2013, 2014, and 2015 for actually outstanding stunt coordination for a comedy series or variety program. So that's funny. But they did win poster single at the Muse Creative Awards. They won, or Charlie Day won Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series at the Online Film and Television Award. They won the People's Choice Awards for Favorite Cable TV Comedy. They won the Satellite Award for Best Television Series Comedy or Musical. That was in 2011. They won that. So
that was a while ago.
There's one more episode that I want to go over, and Michael, I think this is going to be exciting for you because that episode is, of course, The Nightman Cometh.
Yes.
This is season 4, episode 13, entitled The Nightman Cometh. It's very good.
Oh, God.
Nightman.
I'm ready for this. Lay it on to me.
It's maybe one of the greatest episodes of any television series of all time.
100% agree.
Charlie Day, Charlie's character, of course, stages a rock opera based on his song, The Nightman. He recruits the rest of the gang to help him with it. That's the synopsis. Yep. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So it's 7:15 on a Friday. Charlie dances out of Patty's office with a giant heap of papers in his hand. The gang tries to understand why he's so cheery, and he reveals that he has written a musical. They try to figure out what motivated him, revenge, anger, jealousy, but Charlie insists he wrote it just for fun. Right?
Yeah.
Now at a theater, Charlie thanks Artemis for helping transcribe the script into words, and the gang argues over the parts. Mac is initially pleased with playing the little boy, and day man, which makes Dennis, who is playing the night man, jealous. The two switch parts. Frank is over the moon about playing the troll, and Dee plays the princess that works at the coffee shop.
Perfect roles for each and every one of them.
You're so right. They begin rehearsing, and Dee argues with Charlie over her song lyrics, claiming they sound like she molests children.
What the hell?
He flips out, telling her that it is either that song or no song at all, basically is what he says. This song is Dee's only solo song in the play, so she says, fine, I'll do it. He then has to teach Frank to say boy's soul rather than boy's hole, and convinces Mac and Dennis that the Nightman visits the boy. He is not R-wording him, but rather just taking away his innocence.
What is going on?
They're pretty convinced that he is being, taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Later, Charlie randomly walks into the waitress as she is walking home. He gives her a ticket to the musical and promises that if she comes, he will never bother her ever again for the rest of her life. The night of the musical arrives. Charlie brings Gladys to play the piano. The play starts, and Dee and Dennis complete their first song, Tiny Boy, Little Boy, Baby Boy. The lyrics are like this. Princess, what is this strange feeling? Boy, I feel so strange inside. Princess, it's so strange, but appealing. Boy, I feel so good. Oh, princess, tiny boy, little boy, baby boy, I need you. Tiny boy, little boy, I want to touch you, boy. I need you, boy. Tiny boy, little boy, baby boy, I need you. So on and so forth. And you can kind of see where this is going. Then Dee sings her own song called Just to Be Clear, which is an explanation to what that was about, and that she does not, in fact, touch little boys, which enrages Charlie since that is not the song that he wrote, and it messes up the play in Charlie's eyes. Dennis gloats that the audience loves him, and Max says he is aiming for gasps instead of laughs. After entering the stage to laughter, Mac and Frank sing The Troll Toll, which goes kind of like this, realizing that he's saying boy's soul, but it sounds like he's saying boy's hole. So he says, you got to pay the troll toll. If you want to get into that boy's hole, you got to pay the troll toll to get in. You want that baby boy's hole, you got to pay the troll. You got to pay the troll toll. You got to pay the troll toll to get in.
Oh my god!
How is
this episode still up? Like, that's so
it's
bad.
Actually, so good. And Mac makes the experience between him and Dennis extremely graphic. By the way, so it gets very bad. The next scene begins, and Dennis transforms into the Dayman and sings the song Dayman, which is probably the most recognizable song that goes, Dayman, master of the night man, champion of the sun. He's a master of karate and friendship for everyone. And it repeats it like 7 more times. He and Mac have their stage fight scene, which is partially improvised. As everybody fumbles their lines and makes mistakes, Charlie gets increasingly upset backstage. After the reprise of The Dayman, Charlie descends on a sun above the stage wearing all yellow and sings the song Marry Me to the waitress. That song goes like this. I was that little boy was me. I was once a boy, but now I am a man. I fought the Nightman, lived as Dayman, and now I'm here to ask for your hand. So if you want to... Thunder.
Wow.
I'll be here in a sec.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
So if you want to marry me, to marry men, will you marry me? Will you come on the stage and join me in this thing called matrimony? Please say yes and do not bone me. Please just marry me.
Oh my god. The
She
amount-
angrily
effect check is,
declines.
cringe.
it's so
Yeah.
it's like the amount of genius that it takes to come up with something that is intentionally so cringy is incredible.
Yeah. So she angrily declines his proposal and walks out. Frank tries to console him, which only makes him more upset. And that's the end of the episode.
Greatest piece of television ever written.
Still one of the greatest pieces of television ever written. So,
Wow.
those are
Just
my two
wow.
favorite episodes. If you're going to watch any episodes, you should watch those two episodes because they are the best episodes. They also have Charlie's like best original music in them. So
I want to ask: Is
Go
there
ahead.
any episode that's like banned from airing on TV? Like,
Ooh.
I don't think so because I think they're pretty smart about how they play. But
they must have really good lawyers, or like really good at walking the fine line, or FX just lets them do whatever they want.
Banned episodes.
Season 14, episode 3, D-Day. This episode was banned because Dee brought back all of her racist characters from banned episodes past. There are a lot of banned episodes, apparently.
I was gonna say there is no way that this show is the way it is without there being banned episodes.
Oh my god. This Google search just
Yeah.
unloaded a whole box. You know what? Here's what I promise you, Patrick. I will use my quick this next week to go over the banned episodes of Always Sunny in Philadelphia and why they're banned. Does that sound good?
That works for me.
Great. 'Cause
100%.
what a great question. I don't have the answer to. So if you like Always Sunny in Philadelphia or you've liked what we talked about, of course, go watch the show. If you've already watched the show and you want more Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I have this next segment called More Always Sunny. And here it is. The Nightman Cometh live. In September of 2009, the cast took their show live. The gang performed the musical The Nightman Cometh in New York City, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and, of course, Philadelphia. Mary Elizabeth Ellis and Artemis also appeared to perform as the waitress and Artemis. Danny DeVito's wife also assumed the role of Gladys. The creator, the guy who plays Mac, said that the Live Nation originally approached the cast about doing the show at 30 cities, but the end, the cast settled on just 6. But yeah, for a while there, you could have gone and seen The Nightman Cometh live, which is wild. You can still look it up and you can watch it. And it's also included as a bonus feature in the season 4 DVD box set. So it's out there. You can watch it, the full The Nightman Cometh, and you will have a great time. Another thing that you can look into is the Russian adaptation of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia called It's Always Sunny in Moscow, in which the 4 central friends work in a bar called Philadelphia that is in Moscow.
Interesting.
There's a book. A book is based upon It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It was released on January 6th of 2015. It is entitled The Gang Writes a Self-Help Book, The 7 Secrets of Awakening the Highly Effective 4-Hour Giant Today.
4-hour giant?
Yeah.
All right.
It's
yeah.
probably insane. There's also a sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, like 4 narcissists. So it's wrote from the perspective of the 4
characters. Yeah.
So it's just 4 narcissists writing about
a self-help book.
Wow.
Sounds awesome.
That sounds like a great time.
They also have a podcast on November 9th of 2021. Howerton Day and Mikhail Henley started the Always Sunny podcast, an episode-by-episode recap of the show with Megan Gaz as producer and Caitlin Olsen occasionally guest starring. So there's a lot out there if you like Always Sunny. So to sum things up, and to kind of close this segment, the main takeaways from the story of Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one that spans all of entertainment, but is important nonetheless. Take chances and bets on yourself. You never truly know how far your self-made album, watercolor painting, entertainment podcast, or short film might go. You may make it big, or you may get addicted to crack. Either way, thanks for entertaining this.
Nice.
I didn't talk
Good
about it, but
ending.
one of the huge things about Always Sunny is the fact that Dee and Dennis try to get money from the government by getting addicted to crack,
Yep, I remember that one.
and they actually get addicted to crack. The characters. So anyway, that makes sense. Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
you got a quick this for us?
Oh boy, do I.
Great.
Who wants to start a timer?
I'm gonna start a timer.
Are we going to
Sweet.
continue recording or are we stopping recording?
No, we're gonna keep recording.
Okay. Well,
Why would we stop recording, Pat? This is now gonna be part of the show. This is gonna be in the
Yeah.
episode.
okay. Give
We're
me a
live.
No,
right?
even the part where Patrick's asking, "Are we gonna keep recording?" This is still gonna be in the episode.
second. All right, we're
Because
good.
if I make that statement now, it becomes part of the bit. Are
recording?
Are you recording?
Yes, I'm recording.
Okay, great. Here's your stopwatch. Ready,
Yeah.
set,
Yeah.
go.
All right. So a long while ago, I brought to the table a topic that I know Alex and host at the time, Nick, weren't the biggest fans of, but for me personally, it means a lot.
Oh joy!
I talked about the sport of football.
I love football.
Specifically the NFL.
When
And
was this? Because I remember once the Bengals started doing stuff, my love for football was reignited. So
Yeah, so this
I'm
is
back in the
year-
saddle now.
The year before that, because I was talking about the big game, the Superb Owl as
I remember
entertainment.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was like, you can't say the. They don't like it.
Yep.
Fair.
But there was one thing that I talked about in that that episode that did pique their interest, and this was the topic of fantasy football.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I wanted
we
to
love
shine-
fantasy.
I just wanted to shine a little bit of light on this little subsection of sports entertainment because I have been diving into it more recently and I love it so much. So essentially, the whole idea of fantasy football, it's not like you roll dice and you come up with a class. It's like, oh, I am running back Ezekiel Elliott.
Arguably would have made it better,
world.
but we'll allow it.
Arguably. But what it is it is essentially a way to well, here, let's back it up even further. Let's talk back to the beginnings of it. Well, let's go back to 1962 when part owner of the Oakland Raiders, Bill Winkenbach, gathered with some of his friends in New York City, and they decided to create the first ever fantasy football league, which they called it the GOPPPL. Otherwise known as the Greater Oakland Professional Pigskin Procrastinators League. Essentially, the whole idea of it is that each person acts as a commissioner or an owner of their made-up team, where they will draft through a thing that mimics the actual NFL draft, individual players, and where you will get points based off of that individual player's performance that week. And the whole idea is that you would go head to head against another person within the league at the same time. So it creates these matchups between each owner. Honestly, not much of that has changed to this day. There's lots of evolutions on it, but that's still basically it.
Yep.
We have like different ideas of like a front to back draft, which is where it's like you start at like first all the way to the last person, and then it goes back to the first person and then all the way back. But now we also have what is a more popular method called a snake draft. Snake draft being where you start at one all the way to the last person, but instead of the first person drafting again from the top of the order, that last person gets to draft right again, and then it circles all the way back around in reverse order. That way, the thing that people find with that makes things a little bit more fair, makes it a little bit more easy to digest being the last person to go. But the whole idea and the reason why I like fantasy football so much is typically in sports, you got your one team. You got like your one team that you follow that you really root for. And those are really the only games that you care about. What fantasy football does is it lets you care about all of the games. We get like 8 games over a weekend, but only if only one of those actually matters, then that's lots of wasted football. However, if you get to pick up individual players on each team and get to see how they perform in real time, because your points are being scored in real time against your opponent, it just makes that investment so much better. It's so much easier to keep your eyes glued. Just makes it could turn a Sunday from just like a 3 to 4 hour little sit down sesh to watch your favorite team play into a whole day event, going from 1 o'clock in the afternoon all the way to like 11 o'clock at night. And that to me is, as a football fan, can't really ask for more. But yeah, where are we at time wise?
You got 30 seconds.
All right. So all in all, if you want to play fantasy football, there's lots of options. You can go online, just Google Fantasy Football League. You can join up with a bunch of random people. It's not usually as fun that way. I suggest going and finding some friends to play with. But yeah, go do that. Try it out. It's a good time. Even if you don't care about football, if you just like playing games and having something to care about each week and get invested in, try it out.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Let's say yeah for 3 more seconds. Yeah, 2 more.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
Cool.
5 minutes on the dot, man.
Damn,
you did
I'm
it.
good.
Incredible. Hey, I'd love to try fantasy football, but chances are I'd end up rolling dice anyway because I'd have to make it random who I choose because I don't know shit about any of the players, but I know the teams I like. I want Joe Burrow, but I feel like everybody does, so it's whatever. Not Michael. He's a Steelers fan. Anyway, I'm gonna out him. Yeah, I know, right? Could you even imagine? He's still my friend, but like, God.
Oh no.
Can't be a
I've had-
Steelers fan, man.
Oh no, I've had 50 years of success in the NFL. Oh, damn it.
Yeah, but then you had Big Ben, you big old idiot.
Yeah, I know. That part sucked.
Yeah, that part sucked for a while. Hey, if there's anything in the realm of entertainment that you want to hear us cover that we haven't covered already, first off, make sure you check the 124 other episodes because maybe we did. How far can we go here? Like, entertainment has been expanding since human civilization started, but like, really, how far can we take this train without the suggestions of our, closest companions and friends? If you send us your suggestions, we might do an episode on it. That's what I'm getting at. There are a couple of different ways you can do that. Number one is you can just go to our website, www.entertainthis.com/et-podcast. Scroll all the way to the bottom and fill out a little form there. It gets sent straight to us. Or you could email us directly, entertainthispodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter. We're entertain_this. On Instagram, we're entertain this podcast. On Facebook, we're podcast entertain this. And as always, entertain us so we can entertain you and you can entertain this. We'll see you guys next Friday. And it'll be Patrick's turn.
Yeah.
Bye!
Bye.
This episode was written by Alex Steele, with additional commentary by Patrick Frazier and Michael Savoya. Our showrunner and resident fact-checker is Chloe Price. Our theme music is Rush Bubble by Aaron Spencer, with interstitial music by DJW. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and thanks for listening.